3. All right. We're recording. Where is your shared screen right now? All right. Do you guys see the, y'all see the SVG primer?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Let's close this up. All right. So you're going to have a small task at the end of class. It's a very, very small task. So in my weekly update, I said, I don't know if we're going to be able to use GitHub, and I don't want to abandon it because we're going to need it for Web3. And I assume everything's going to, we're going to have in-person classes. We've already started talking with the faculty about, moving offices downtown. And so, the thought here is we're still going to meet in person at some point. And so what I'm going to do is, setting all that aside, there is a Web 2 framework. I'm going to give you a link to this. And all I'm going to ask you to do is put your picture. I'm saying, use this framework, right? And put your picture up and then host it on GitHub and then deploy it with Netlify. What I'm checking for here is if you can't do it, you're like, all right, I don't remember any of this from Web 1. Great, right? Then we'll have an entire course. But if like 90% of us get this done, then we don't need to have it be, because we only have so much FaceTime together. And so I want to make sure that I want to see where we're at. So this is kind of a litmus test for us. So that's what I'm going to do at the end of class and just provide this link. Yeah. Good there? Just give you a heads up on that. All right, stuff like the other thing is I can't see, if you have Visual Studio installed, or I can't see your screens, and it's really tough to know what you're doing locally on your computers when I just flat out can't see it. There. So there's that. I'm gonna go ahead and pin that and we'll come back to that. But for right now, let's go ahead and get into one of my favorite things about working on the web is this idea of SVGs. All right, so let's go ahead and click on SVGs right here. And you're gonna have to excuse all the wonky Notion linking, but I'll try to fix that. All right, so Colin, I know what an SVG is. I understand all this. It's a scalable vector graphic. I get it. I go into Illustrator and I make an SVG. And what I want us to be able to do is understand, well, why does SVG exist inside of a Web 2 class? Like, what is the point of all this? And so what I'm gonna do right now is do some really boring talking. Okay, I want to talk about the kind of this idea of what does this have to do with Web 2? I thought this isn't a digital illustration class. And so what we want to get at is CodePen is actually really great for getting into SVGs. So let's go ahead and get into the Professor Pen here. Let's pop open the Professor Pen and let's start making some SVGs so we can better understand this. And the reason I'm struggling with this is because it's tough at first for people to see that what does this have to do with Web 2? And this is the point that I'm really trying to get across here. All right, so inside of the Professor Pen, I'm gonna go ahead and remove P5. Let's see here, am I recording, everybody? I can't tell anymore. You would, oh good, I am recording, all right. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and remove P5, like so.
I think wherever you have your Professor Pen is not the window that's being recorded.
Oh, thank you. Let me stop the share for a second. I can't wait till we can meet in person, y'all. This is gonna be grand. All right, can you see me typing?
Yep.
Oh, great, thank you, Brian. Much appreciated. So let's get back into Web 2. Go ahead and get to the Professor Pen. And what we're gonna do is just go ahead and make this SVG. Yeah, and maybe this will help just a bit. That's a Web3. All right, now we're in the professor pen. I've removed P5. Good, good. By P5 here. All right. So first off, the HTML has an SVG element, like so. Right? We just type in SVG, we get stuff, and it's the parent element. Now, unlike P5, P5 uses the canvas element. Okay? And maybe looking at the code will better help us understand this. And I think I did this in Web 1, and it kind of like ruined SVGs for everybody. But that was the intention here. And so the canvas element just basically draws a blank screen, right? A blank like canvas for us to draw on. And which is all well and good, but we have to draw inside of this. And so everything is encapsulated inside of this element. And so what we want instead is kind of that drawing power, but we want it on individual elements. And that's why we have SVGs. And so if you get into Figma, so I'm gonna go ahead and get into Figma here, right? Now I'm not good at Figma at all. I tell Web3 this, well, UX3 this all the time. When I come in here, I'm gonna draw a shape, any shape. See how I'm not good at this? All right, I'm gonna draw a shape like so. And normally what we do is we would export this out as an image, right? Or as a PNG, or as a GIF, or in this case, you know, a JPEG if we wanted to. But really what we're trying to do right now is we're going to export this thing out as an SVG instead. And so I'm going to export this thing out as an SVG. And you're going to get a file on your desktop somewhere called, you know, star.svg. And we all know how to link up a file. And so I come into here and actually search for my SVGs. Okay. The first thing you're going to see, right, is, let's see here. Let's grab, I got a ton of these. Triangle, star. Oh, good. I still have a star.svg. And if I copy that path right in here, just paste it right in. So I can use the image element to actually load in this SVG. And that's the first part, right? So there it is, the star, like calling, what is the big deal? Like this could be a PNG, this could be a JPEG, right? Well, the downside of this is we're loading it in an SVG file inside of the image element. But the SVG file is encapsulated, right? It's an entity within itself. So we can use the image element to load in SVG, but there's got to be a better way. And we're going to see, well, what are some of the benefits to this, and how does JavaScript help us with all of this? And I know it's confusing right now, but all of these questions that I'm asking are basically why by the end of class, we're going to look at a framework called GreenSock, right? And when we keep asking ourselves is, why on earth does all of this stuff exist? Like, why am I just talking about this for the last 10 minutes? And one of them is, how do I change the color of this? How do I change the color of this star? For just a second, everybody. Here is the star, right? Here is the file. And I need us to be able to answer this big picture stuff. Here's the SVG file itself. How do I change the color of this star? Anybody? Walk me through it. I'd have to go into Figma, correct? Make a change to this. Like, oh my goodness. And then what do I have to do to this file again? Export it out, put it back up into either CodePen or GitHub. Begin to see how this is tedious. Are we beginning to see how like this can't be the workflow for a file format that allows us to manipulate it directly, right? And that's the big one here. We want to be able to manipulate this thing directly. So everyone go to this file right here, right? I provided you, go into the comments, all right, and just find this file, okay? So we're done with, all right, so we're gonna be on this page right here. What I want you to do is go to this page, okay? And then just view source on it. And it's glorious. Take a look at all that beautiful, beautiful markup. It is legitimately beautiful to me, because you can look at this and go, oh yeah, this makes sense. right? You're going to use this element called G, okay? And inside of it, there's an element called polygon. And here's the path of the star. And look at these points. This is no different than where we're inside of P5 drawing a square or a rectangle or a line. These are just points along this path. And it wrapped up inside of all this is the SVG parent itself. So what we can do is we can Command A, Command C, we can copy out all of this code. Okay. And we can paste it right into HTML like so, and we get the exact same thing, right? Now, at first glance, you're like, ah, this is too much. At first glance, this might seem like, why can't I just, it would be so much easier just load this in as an image, but then you can't do this, right? And so what we want to do is go ahead and select our, in this case, we're going to select not the image, right? Can anybody tell me what element CSS is going to select? I want to make sure that we understand this conceptually. CSS is going to style this star. What element is it going after? Anybody?
G.
Right. Did everybody hear that? Josh, say it again.
SVG.
SVG. And that's the big value here. So if we're going SVG, all right, we're going to use this fill property, and we're going to give it a value of red. All right, there you go. And your design team says, well, we want to make it coral instead of red. And you're like, okay, good. I'm going to lunch. We can change so many attributes of this. We can begin to also animate this. And it's that ability to hook into something visual, right? With every single, right, with a lot of HTML, sorry, CSS properties. Like that's the powerful thing about all of this. And there's no degradation whatsoever. Look at it's crisp at really, really small, right? And it's crisp at really, really big. The other major advantage to all of this is if I take a look at this file size right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this actual, right? So if this was a JPEG or anything else, it would be, you know, whatever, 30 kilobytes, 50 kilobytes, right? In terms of file size, guess what this thing weighs? Watch this. You're going to love this. In terms of SVG file size, guess how much, what does this thing weigh? Right? How big is this file? Where is that star SVG? Look at it. It's microscopic. What does text weigh? Very, very little. You have something that is less than a kilobyte. Okay. So there's lots of advantages. But what's the disadvantage? We're going to have to get used to looking at SVG code and understanding it. And that's where we're at today. All right. So with me so far? I know that's the first lecture with SVG is always kind of tough. All right.
I have a quick question about that.
Sure.
So if you put the fill color in the CSS, can you take out the style tag in the HTML?
Oh yeah, definitely. And
Okay.
we're going to run this through an optimizer, so this is more human readable. Yeah. No,
Okay.
right now, Josh, this isn't fun to look at.
Okay.
One of the first things we can get rid of is like, Adobe, stop putting your name everywhere. Like, I don't need you, right? And we also know that it's already encoded, so that's the first place to start. Also, because we understand, Josh, I'm going to answer your question. Like, see, Josh's star, right? Like, we can put an entire, we can begin it because it's just an ID attribute, right? We can have classes inside of this, and so yeah, definitely.
Okay.
You're basically treating this as an element inside of another element, and see how beautiful that is. It's just works itself out. All right, the other thing we can do with Figma, okay, is control click, or Figma or Sketch, is you can actually copy as SVG like so, okay. And we're going to do that, and I'm just going to paste in that same exact star, okay. And we can come into here and select that star and change it again. Okay, but notice the fill color is actually on that path. So to get to actually change it to, let's say, blue, right? What is our selector going to have to be? Right, so we have the SVG parent, and inside of that is the path. All right, what am I typing here? If this is setting the fill color right there.
You append path to the SVG tag there.
Yeah, space path, plus path, Brian, equal.
Space.
Look at how much you all know already. This is for most of us in this class, this is the first time we've seen this. And we're taking our knowledge from Web 1 and we're applying it to a brand new element called SVG. And this is the point I'm trying to make, is like you understand more of this than you might think, right? And we haven't even begun to start animating it yet. So, all right, done in Figma. Thanks, Brian. That was good there. All right, back into SVG. All right, so the good, I don't know why that looks all wonky. The good here is you can use a lot of different tools to make this, okay? The cons, it can be completely bloated and unmodified, okay? I get a lot of pushback. I was like, well, I'm just gonna use Adobe Animate. There's another tool called Tumult Hype, okay? What I'm trying to say here is there's a lot of tools that can make SVG and animate SVG for you. And I get, it's like, haha, Colin, I'm gonna use this instead. I'm like, go for it. Webflow has used this thing called Lottie, right? We're gonna take a look at it right here. And you're gonna have to make an animation for this class, like a Google Doodle, right? Like a Google Doodle homepage. And I was like, here, we're just going to use this one. Like, forget you, Colin, I can just use this website. And I can say, that's great. I'm glad that you're using this. I'm glad that you can change the playback speed. And right now, my question to you is, what happens when you click, when your client says, hey, I need you to edit this. And you're like, well, I don't know how. And that's what we're getting at. Okay. So you can use all of these point and click tools, and you can use all these other resources, and you can, but as soon as you click HTML, what I need you to be able to understand is, what is all of this? So we can copy the code and we can do all this, but did you understand what you just copied? And so there's a lot of different, look at this, this is a nice animation. Okay, but this is all SVG. Okay. And here are our playback speeds, right? Forward, back, this is all CSS stuff. Okay. So between Lottie, Tumult Hype, it's another one. And there's a new one every other day, it seems. We're gonna be using GreenSock to do all of this, okay? All right, eventually we're gonna be able to do a lot more, not we as in the web community. SVG support is getting better and better. Okay. Tools that we're gonna be using for this class, we're gonna be using Figma, but you're welcome to use Illustrator. Both of them will export out to SVGs just fine, okay? All right, there's that. I've already gone over a little bit about the SVG format itself. Question so far? Anybody? Yell it out. The uneasy silence. Excellent. Okay. All right. Some examples. Here is a responsive SVG. Okay. What you can't see on my screen here is at a large screen. I can't do it because of the screen sharing. In short, all right, what's going to happen with this is the standard image. And what's nice is you can have, so at a small screen, this text is going to get washed out, right? And get really, really hard to read. And with an adaptive SVG, that text, that same icon looks like this. So you're loading in one file, and what it's doing here is it's adjusting the size, it's adjusting the features, right, depending upon the size, right? Instead of just taking an image and making it smaller. And we can't do this on our screen share, but I'll provide a link to this, and you can, change your screen size yourself. The other thing about SVG is they're a part of HTML. They're a part of HTML, and which so everything we know about HTML we can apply to SVGs. Okay, this is used in the Eastern homepage. These are all SVGs. You can make icon packs, right? So instead of loading in 4 times 5, so let's say there's 20 icons here. Okay, instead of loading in 20 icons, right, individually, how many files do you have to load? Right. So if you ask someone on the street here, how many files are being loaded for this set of images, these 20 images, and they're going to count 20. They're going to go 20 files are loaded. But knowing what we know about SVGs, how many SVG files are going to get loaded to get all 20 of these icons? Anybody? From lecture, how many SVG files am I going to load to get all of these icons that I'm encircling right here? There's a number.
Isn't it just one?
Yep, Madison. That's the thing. Just one file. And that's what we need to know. Thanks, Madison. You're just loading in one file and it has all this. And as you add to it, okay. And so as you can see right here, you can load in 1,588 different icons with just one file. And you can cherry pick like which icon you want by just changing the class name. It's very, very powerful. All right, the big thing about SVGs here is an image. Here's the SVG image, okay? I'm sorry, here is the SVG markup. And notice it's crisp at small, it's really crisp at big. This is from CSS Tricks, by the way. I didn't make this file. But then if this is a rasterized image, right, or a bitmap image, basically if you went into Photoshop, right, and you just made the image smaller or bigger, yeah, it's fine, it's small. But then when you make it bigger again, right, look how pixelated it is, right? And so if your thought is, well, I'm just going to load in the most high-res version, then you have to download the most high-res version. Okay, so look at the difference there between a raster image and SVG. Look at how crisp that is. All right, so Colin, what's the downside of all this? The downside here is SVGs are for basically flat things. If you're going to design it in Illustrator, make an SVG. Right. The good rule of thumb is if you're going to make it in Photoshop, make it a JPEG and a PNG from there. So if there's a lot of depth, if there's a lot of shadowing, right, and there's a lot of image complexity, don't make it an SVG. Okay. We good there? All right. So for this project, a lot of students will go in and add in a lot of filters, and you might as well just use Photoshop at that point. Okay. So the downside of SVG is it can also get very, very bloated and very big in file size. All right, here's Wally. Right, dude, look at how cute Wally is. Yeah. Oh, look, there's even sound. Okay, and look, you understand all of this. Well, now you understand most of this. We'll talk about lifecycle methods later. And this is actually using P5 to make this happen. And this is the framework we're going to be using. All right, Colin, you're losing them. All right, let's get into this. All right, so this is how we can make SVG. Those are our tools. Okay. All right, let's use GreenSock real fast. And before I lose you completely. All right, get rid of all that. So first off, we're gonna go into our JavaScript right here, and we're gonna add in this library here called GreenSock. Okay, GSAP or GSAP is also the GreenSock animation platform. And that's what we're looking for right here, the GreenSock animation platform. I'll use both of them interchangeably. It's just, right, good. Everybody loading GreenSock. Get GreenSock loaded in there and hit save and close on this. I'll post a link in there. All right, so we will come back to all of the nuanced stuff with GreenSock. I mean, with SVGs. But for right now, I want to make sure that we actually get a little bit excited about this. So we have a basic tween inside of GreenSock. Okay, basically, just like our tweens in Web 1. So what GreenSock is doing is it's, as we saw in Web 1, making CSS animations is kind of cumbersome, right? It's not elegant at all. But the upside to it is it's really performant, and it doesn't bog down our browsers, and it's really easy to modify. It's just, so how do we get the best of both worlds? How do I get something that's easy to edit, right, at the same time very like performant inside of the browser? Let's go ahead and make a div. And let's go ahead and just make a simple div here. And then we're going to style this here. And we're going to style this div. And 100 px and let's see, a height of 100 px. Okay. All right, and of course we have to give it a background color. Corn silk. Let's try corn silk. All right, let's have a corn silk div there. All right, so we got this element that we've designed, we've styled it. Okay. And no biggie there. Now what we're going to do is let's go ahead and animate this thing. So what we're going to do is wake up this thing called GSAP, just like so, and just semicolon right there. And so GSAP is the library that we're going to be using. Okay. And so it's a library, it's an action. Okay. And we're getting this error because there's other methods inside of this. And so we can even, if we wanted to, just make sure that it's there. We can console.log out in GSAP just so we can see it there, right? And so what we've done is we've added on this library called GSAP, and it is massive. And let's go ahead. All right, where is the view here? Right, debug mode. And let's take a look at our console. Okay. And there is everything inside of GSAP. So Colin, why are you doing this? Because, right, not anybody in today's class, but sometimes this happens. You'll just forget to add in this library. And I'm really trying to hammer this point home, is that make sure that before you start using stuff, it's all connected, okay? Make sure this is connected. So I'm going to, you don't need to do this. I'm going to remove this. And again, watch CodePen like freak out and said, GSAP is not defined, okay? So make sure that all your stuff is there before you start using it, right? Don't just start typing, right? Check, see everything is in place before you start typing. All right, so we got this thing and we want to move it, and we have a method to move it, right? And that method is called to, and to has 2 arguments, okay? And the first argument is the thing you want to move, right? And then where you want to move it to. Right, just like on our square, it basically says like what is the height and what is the width of this, and those are all our like options for what we want to do. And same thing for random, like a random number between what and what. And so GSAP has this method called to, right? So in this case, what is the thing that we want to move here? In terms of CSS, what is the thing we want to move? And what's nice about GSAP is you don't have to really learn anything new. You just need to learn its conventions. And so this is just your CSS selector. In this case, we just want to move, that's the div, right? So if we can't select it in CSS, right, JavaScript doesn't have a shot. Can't select in CSS, JavaScript doesn't have a shot. It's that same thing I keep repeating. And now where we're going to move it to, right, is loaded in as an object. And I like to introduce, even though Codecademy doesn't fully break down objects until what, lesson 8, I believe. It's somewhere. You can look it up a ways. Okay. Everything inside of JavaScript is an object. JavaScript is a bunch of circles inside of a circles, a thing inside of a thing, an object inside of an object. And I like to introduce that as early as possible. And the object notation is just square brackets. Okay. And we just need to get used to seeing like everything inside of square brackets is good, right? They're just fences. And so we have
square or curly brackets.
Oh, I'm sorry, curly braces. Thank you. Thank you, Corey. Thanks for that. All right. And so once we have, all the good stuff rests inside of the curly braces, right? There's that sign in my office that a student made. And this is where the good stuff is. Like I've said before in previous classes, like this is the good stuff. And so inside there, you're going to give yourself some space. Okay. And you're going to give you the location. You're just going to give it the X coordinate. Okay. And so this is a property. So let's just use the terminology. This is our key and our value. Okay. And objects have these key value pairs. Okay. And you can think of them also similarly to CSS. This is our property and this is our value. And so the key we want is we're going to move it to the X location. So go ahead and type in X. Okay. And then we're going to give it a value. What location? In this case, 500. Did I remove GreenSock? Nope, it's there. I got a bug. Let's see what this error. GSAP is not. Is it working for you? It should be. Come on, CodePen. GSAP is defined.
Oh, GSAP is not a function. It's an object.
It should be in there. Did I spell it wrong? Two box. Whoops.
The error message says syntax or missing name after dot operator.
Oh, I wrote this. It should be there. Let's go ahead and give this thing a class. Oh, without looking at the documentation here. This is what I get for jumping too far ahead.
I have so many pastas. Oh, that's before I figured out about.
Oh, y'all, I have this should work for just a div. Well, it moved, but I don't like that it moved like so. Give me a. There you go. All right. I was just waiting for CodePen to reload GreenSock. So I'm gonna hard refresh. All right. See it go on refresh. See it move 500 pixels. So if you wanted to move it down, this is how we're going to end class. If you want to move it down, right? Can anybody guess what that property might be to push the box down?
Why?
Why? Right. You know more about this than you might think. We're going to use that same syntax of key and key values, and you separate a key value pair of a comma. All right. And now we have animated a box. Yeah. So we're going to use GreenSock to control the animations. We're going to use CSS to style the animations, and we're going to use HTML to be the semantic markup for each of our elements. And from there, we're going to be able to make some really cool stuff. I feel like I'm losing you here. Let me take a look, and I'm going to show you some Google Doodles that have been done in the past. Okay. What I'm trying to do is set us up for this project. What you're taking a look at right here, okay, is Emily Cohn's Google Doodle. And this is all running on GreenSock. And you can see the little leaf go in there. You can see the curl and the cattail. Right. And we're going to handle JavaScript to make this animation right here. Right. And you can see the teapot here and the steam. And so this is just one of the greatest examples of this project. And we're all going to make our own Google Doodle. You're going to pick your own topic for your Google Doodle. I'm going to talk about more about that in another class. Right. Here's a very, very basic example, but it still works very well. Right. At one point, we had a fictitious topic called VCD Day. But so to get ahead, I want you to start thinking about what topic you want to do. Pick a topic that you like, and then we're going to animate it. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? All right. Again, JavaScript's going to handle the animation on this. Okay. Now watch the very, very end. These are all SVGs. It's a long one. So hopefully some of these will get you excited about what you can do with this. It's a whole lot of stuff. And I'm going to post inside of Canvas. I just posted inside of Canvas what I want you to do with the Web 2 framework. Before I talk about the Web 2 framework, any questions so far on our SVG primer? All right. There are a lot of places to get SVG, and which we'll talk about. So if you're concerned that you're, one of your strengths isn't drawing SVGs, there you go. Download SVG for your products, and which is perfectly fine. Just like we're downloading code for our projects, we can actually download SVG assets and animate them the same way. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Like we could take this SVG right here, right, and we can animate it, the two objects inside of this individually, like the two figures inside of this object. So can we not get something scanless for just once? Just one class lecture. Anyhow, same thing here, right? We animate the circles around this because this is an element within itself. All right, I'm gonna stop recording on this. I will post inside of Canvas what I want you to do. In short, right, I'm just testing, right? I'm just checking to see where we're at. You're going to fork this framework, right, and put your image up, and then stage it to GitHub. That's it, right? And if you already can do this, then you're good to go, right? And you're going to deploy this in Netlify. You're good to go. Okay. I just want to see how many of us can need a refresher on this. Good. Because if it's a lot of us, it's going to dictate whether or not we can work locally. Questions? All right, I'm going to stop screen sharing.